Hello and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be talking about the order of the effects you use and how this can make a really big difference to your sound for better or worse. A couple of months ago I made a video about whether you should use EQ or compression first and the big differences in sound that it causes. And while I think I cleared that topic up really well, loads of people were asking about reverb and delay and other effects and whether the order matters and then which orders might be better than others. In this video, I'm not going to tell you what order to do things in, but I'm going to show you several examples, and depending on the sound you're going for, this can sometimes be a real make or break decision in getting that sort of soundscape or texture the way you want it to be. Anyway, let's just jump right into the DAW and take a look at these examples. The first effect that we're going to be looking at is delay. So I'll just show you what I've got here. It's a vocal and the last word delays off at the end.
When every word hangs like a curse over our heads.
And in the effects chain, what I had there was a dB meter before so that you could see the signal hitting the effects chain. Then I have a gain plugin, which automates up the end of the phrase just to allow only that last word to hit the delay plugin. Then Fruity Delay 3 is doing its thing. And then I have a dB meter to show you the level going out. And in this case, for this song, this is what I wanted. I wanted the delay to just rise up at the end, and I only wanted to hear this last word with that really nice stereo delay. If I kept the delay on the whole time, it would sound a little bit like this.
Every word hangs like a curse over our heads.
Which is a little bit intense. The order of the gain plugin and the delay are really, really important because I only want that word to go through the delay processing. If I put this gain plugin after the delay, so now you'll see the effects chain will look a little bit more like this. All the volume's going to hit the delay, and then it will be cut away until the end when those delays will flood up. The result is really, really different. So let's take a listen.
Every word hangs like a curse over our heads.
There's a whole jumble of words being delayed, and that's because this delay is actually active the whole time, and then the volume is cut afterwards, as opposed to just that one word reaching the delay.
When every word hangs like a curse over our heads. When every word hangs like a curse over our heads.
Something that people have commented a lot in the past is, why do I use this gain plugin? Why don't I just automate the input into the plugin here? And it's a good question. The reason is, if I automate the input into this plugin, it means that I'm quite tied into using Fruity Delay 3. Whereas, say I want to use a different delay plugin, I think I've got maybe 3 or 4 delay plugins. I've got this repeater delay, which is like a third-party delay. It's from a different manufacturer. If I just drop this in, I'll just turn off the Fruity Delay 3. I can then just swap this into place and it will work.
Curse over our heads.
Whereas if I just automated the input on that one plugin, it would have meant that to do this, I would have had to recreate another automation clip just for this plugin. So using this gain plugin keeps my effects chain an awful lot more flexible. The order you do your effects in and which plugins you use where can make a big difference in whether you feel locked in and tied into the effects you're using, or whether you feel like you can just delete effects, mute them, change them, and then swap them about however you like. The next example I'm showing is on this lead here, so it's really just a pizzicato pluck. I'll turn the effects off. It sounds like this. Really simple. I have an EQ which filters it down. Then I have a distortion plugin, this wave shaper here, which is adding a slight bit of distortion. You'll hear it more in a minute. And then a reverb plugin here, which is doing that to it. And the order of these makes a huge difference. I'm just going to start messing around with them here. So we'll focus down to here. I'm just going to be scrolling them up and around, and you'll hear that I'll be swapping them around, and you'll hear massive differences. So here we go. It's clear to hear that there's loads of big differences, even though, visibly not a lot changes. If I put the EQ first, so this filter that cuts away the high frequencies, the resulting sound is actually brighter at the end. Whereas if I put the EQ last, the resulting sound is more dull. And this is because if I EQ out the high frequencies first, or sort of EQ them down, the reverb and the wave shaper are going to harmonically add some more high frequency content back. So it's still going to be there, just not quite as much of it. Whereas if I put the EQ at the end, any high frequency content that the reverb and the wave shape distortion create, it's just going to sort of pin it down a little bit more. The next thing to note is that the distortion sounds a lot more apparent later on in the chain. So I'll play it before the EQ first and then afterwards. And the main reason for this is because the reverb creates an awful lot more sound and volume to hit that distortion plugin with. So the plugin is being fed a greater signal, which means that the distortion is going to be more active, like the gain staging into that plugin is a little bit more hot. But also, because the EQ isn't after this plugin, all the high frequency distortions and crackle actually comes through the plugin. Now, depending on the mix, whether you've got something really energetic or something atmospheric, any of these sounds might work. You might want it to sound like this, with that kind of tasty distortion, or you might want it to sound like this, without any of that distortion apparent, just a really lush signal that's made a little bit more full by the wave shape distortion. So it's just something to note there. Small differences, just one or two changes in the effects chain, drastic difference to the sound, for better or for worse. The last example is with this sort of bass patch. So it's quite a complicated processing chain. It's probably too many plugins, but anyway, on the sub part of it, I'm filtering away all the high frequencies, so everything above about 500, and then I run it into this Ozone Exciter plugin to add a lot more distortion and grit back to it. I'm just going to turn off the high part of the bass, and this is what we get. Very, very simple and straightforward. And what's interesting is although I filtered away most of the stuff above about 550 Hz at 18 dB per octave, you still hear a load of stuff in the higher registers because I'm distorting this band here, which goes up to about 2K. However, if I change the order and I put this exciter before the filter, so now it looks more like this, what happens is all that excitement and distortion is added and then it's filtered away and it sounds like this, which sounds a lot more underwater and subdued. Just a tiny little change in the effects chain, but a drastic difference in the sound. Something that I just want to say, just to finish this video off, is that when you're going from plugin to plugin in your effects chain, it can sometimes be a good idea to try and match the gain. So add some gain or take away some gain here or there, so that when you bypass and turn plugins on and off, the sound doesn't get much louder. In the last example with that lead, you could hear that I was adding a lot of gain. So going from one plugin to the next, it just got louder and louder and louder. And this meant that when I wanted to bypass and try new things, it was actually harder to gauge what was working versus what was just making it sound louder or more quiet. It's just something to take note of, that sometimes when you're producing, it can be a good idea to try and match things level. Other times, just let your imagination go wild and don't worry about things like that, because it doesn't always matter. So I hope that what everyone can take away from this video, including me, is that the order you put your effects in, almost no matter what effects they are, delay, distortion, reverb, EQ, compression, it makes an enormous difference, but that doesn't mean there's a right way or a wrong way. Clearly, all of those sounds were still valid. They'd work for a certain genre or style. So don't worry about doing it the correct way or the right way. Just test it out and find what's right for your song. And you'll know. Just let your ears guide you. You've got good taste in music. You're going to know what sounds right. So pretty much don't worry about it. And do not be afraid to test these things out for yourself and experiment with lots of different stuff. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you in the next video too. Bye for now.